Hello, everyone. It's the Cyber Pro podcast, 5 questions in 9 minutes because hackers never sleep. Let's get right to it. First question, who are you and what do you do?
I'm Roger A. Grimes. I've been doing cybersecurity for 34 years. I've earned all these gray hairs. I've written 13 books, over 1,100 magazine articles, and I was the InfoWorld and CSO weekly security columnist for like 15 years up until about 2019.
Man, that's a pretty aggressive and rich history. I respect the gray hair. I'm starting to get some. That's why I'm wearing a hat today. Question number 2. What's the best thing about being a cyber expert?
Securing mom's computer, or securing the world's computers. And what I mean by that is, like, my life goal is to try to make the internet significantly more secure than it is today. And it's kind of cool. Like, I don't know if I'll do it. I may die without doing it, but the idea that I may have a chance to help make everybody's mother's computers be more secure is, it's kind of a great life goal.
That's super valiant. Thank you so much. Question 3, cybersecurity is a top concern. That's top of mind for everybody. We hear that in the news every day, but what does that mean to you?
Well, cybersecurity is in the news because we're doing such a horrible job at it, which is interesting. We've been in this industry 30, 40 years, and we are still practicing it so immaturely. It's like we're kindergartners, and so poorly that we're taking down every other industry that has been around forever. The reason why we're in the news is that we overall in general have a pretty poor cybersecurity defense. And let me say, I don't see light on the horizon yet.
When you say we don't have a mature security defense, what's 1 or 2 things that you think we could highlight on that?
Yeah, probably the major thing is that we, like, the number one problem with all security defenses is we do not rightly align our mitigations against the right threats. And what I mean by that is, since the beginning of computer time, the number one successful method of attack for attackers and malware is social engineering. Social engineering is responsible for at least 50%, and some surveys say up to like 92% of all successful attacks. Yet the average IT security budget, maybe they spend 3 to 5% to fight social engineering. So social engineering is number 1. Unpatched software is number 2 problem. Number 3 is passwords, or maybe using MFA. If you concentrate on those 3 things, they account for like 99% of the risk. Yet, like, let's say social engineering, if I go in, not only do we do it wrong, but we're taught wrong. If I go into any guide, like if I went into the PCI DSS guide recently, it's got 8 pages and dozens of controls on how to appropriately configure your firewall. Firewalls pretty much don't work against today's threats. And yet they have 2 or 3 controls and 3 sentences about fighting social engineering, So it's not only we doing it poorly, but and let me say, that's every single guide. HIPAA, Sarbanes-Oxley, NERC, you name it. There's not a guide that's been made that doesn't literally tell us, focus on a million other things. Focus here, focus there, focus there. Don't focus on the stuff that is most likely to successfully attack you. And it's why we do it wrong.
Fair enough. That's actually a very good point. So what piece of insight do you want to share with other professionals?
Is to probably besides focusing on the threats, you really need to focus on the root causes of threats. There's basically 9 or 10. It's social engineering, unpatched software, some type of password authentication guessing, eavesdropping, physical attacks, and so on. There's basically only 9 ways that all hackers and malware have ever broken into places. And so what I like to say is, like, ransomware is not your problem. It's how ransomware broke in. Ransomware is an outcome of your real problem, and everybody needs to better focus on the initial root causes of how bad things get in. By that I mean, the threats change over time, but how they get in does not. And like that, it's not like they've added something new. They're just doing the same things they've always done. And if ransomware is to go away today, like someone was able to come with some great defense and there's no more ransomware, but you allow them to gain access to your environment and get root or admin or whatever, they're going to do something else. And so we need to, as an industry, as a society, better focus on closing the ways that badness gets into the environment, and a little bit less so about what happens after that. And when we do, ransomware is something you got to focus on, but it's only because we're not focusing better on how it got in the first place.
No, that's awesome. So final question for you. What's your favorite piece of retro technology that makes you smile?
Either a vinyl record player that, because music brings enemies together. Like you'll see people saying "Death to America" or something, but they're playing the Rolling Stones. Or it could be the 5¼ inch floppy disk sitting on a picture frame on my wall to remind me of my starting days when I absolutely knew nothing about computers. Because I remember I wrote down on that floppy drive, formatted on an IBM PC, and it was like computer number 19 in the college lab, because my professor said, when you format your disk, you can only use it, I think he said, on that type of computer, but I took it as that computer. And so whenever I went to do my computer work, there would be somebody on that computer, and I'm like, hey, how long are you going to be on here? He's like, I don't know, another couple hours. I'm like, but I formatted my disk on that one. And I would try to be, I'm a big guy, I tried to kind of like threaten them so they move so I could use, I was like, because my disk, I formatted my disk on that computer. So I have it to remind me that I too one day didn't understand computers all that well.
That's amazing. What's your favorite vinyl record that you have?
Probably Rolling Stones, but anything I can throw on there. It's quite an extensive collection, and just love music and love live music. And maybe in all the COVID lockdown, that's probably what I miss most, right? Me and the wife going to bars and stuff and listening to there's a lot of talent out there. God bless them.
For sure. Thank you so much for being on the Cyber Pro podcast.
Thank you. So glad to be here.
Hey, you did it. You made it to the end. Thank you so much. Check out more Cyber Pro podcast.